Hello everyone and welcome back to JB's Total Gaming. And if you are a video gamer, you've probably at least heard about No Man's Sky and a lot of controversy involving its release. A lot of people really like the game and love it, and a lot more people, whether they be reviewers or just gamers, seem to be disappointed with the game. It seems to be a technological marvel that doesn't necessarily play all that well, particularly on PC, and while it offers a lot of interesting stuff as far as a huge universe, a lot of people are disappointed with the gameplay, saying it doesn't really offer that much. So I'm offering up an alternative, not necessarily directly just to No Man's Sky, but just a game that if you're interested in mining and exploration and seeing a bunch of different things and doing a bunch of different things, it maybe offers a little bit more bang for your buck, and that is Starbound. Now, Starbound in many ways is a reskin of a game called Terraria, which was also very successful, with the main difference being Terraria was set in a kind of fantasy world, whereas in this is set in space and you travel between different worlds. You mine, as you see my character getting, fruits there. They can mine different resources on the planet. Some of the things like dirt can just be used for buildings, while there are resources used to actually build things, equip better items and stuff like that to actually build items, although you will find items in the game as well. So what the game offers is actually a mix almost of No Man's Sky and Minecraft. So imagine Minecraft in 2D, where you have your matter manipulator, where you can go around and gather resources and basically terraform the environment, remove stuff in order to use it to build other things, and use those things to build buildings and things like that. There is also combat. There are ranged and melee weapons and different abilities, kind of tech abilities, different jumps. You can turn yourself into Metroid Ball, different things that you unlock throughout the game and can improve as you collect different resources. This is a game that also offers traveling to different worlds, but the worlds are definitely tiered. Basically, based on what resources are on the planet, is also how difficult that planet is. So you'll get certain resources, get weapons on the planets, build up weapons to be able to go to tougher planets to get better resources, so on and so forth. But what you find on the planets, I found relatively interesting. Here we see a big area that's filled with these glitches, which are robot entities. There are several different species in the world that have slightly different personality traits that you can come across, and this is kind of a city, if you will, of these glitch robots that are, for some reason, their programming is stuck in like medieval times. And the thing that's kind of interesting for me about these planets is a little bit like No Man's Sky. There is a lot of exploring on the planet, but then there's even more exploring maybe into tunnels of No Man's Sky, or in this game, digging into the earth and going underground. A lot of times you'll find very dangerous creatures, but also weapons and different items underground as well as above ground. Now, No Man's Sky has a few problems. For some people, there is no multiplayer gaming, where this game definitely has that, and there isn't necessarily a huge reward for exploring. Maybe you get resources to maybe eventually build up your mining laser, build up this or that, but some people have found the game a little bit boring, and I think some people might also find this game, whether we're talking about Terraria or in this case Starbound, a little bit boring in what you do, because you are going through that cycle of gathering resources to make yourself better, to go to tougher planets, to gather resources to make yourself better, to go to tougher planets, so on and so forth. But I do find this game, at least what I've seen of it, I have not actually played No Man's Sky. I've watched many reviews, watched a good bit of live gameplay, and I think for the right people, that game could be really interesting, but I feel like this game offers a little bit more. There's a little bit more diversity in the combat. There are a ton of different ranged and melee weapons. There are weapons that kind of cast spells that you can maneuver around with the mouse, maybe make rain fire down that you can control. Traditional weapons, you can do sword and board in this game, 2 weapon combat, and while everything is pretty simple, I just think there's a little bit more to it. And here's the big difference. No Man's Sky is a $60 game. This is a $15 game. So with the multiplayer, with what I find to be a little bit more engaging things you come across in story and whatnot, and even more interesting progression, I think this might be an interesting alternative. Now, it's not going to be that Zen experience that a lot of people who do like No Man's Sky have enjoyed, and it can definitely be a grind. So if you're someone that doesn't enjoy a grind, neither one of those games probably are right for you. And while this game takes a lot of time to progress, and it is kind of a grind, and there are some interesting things, it is a grind, and that concept of going from, this tier planet to this tier planet, and, dying on a new planet until you get better weapons and armor, and then eventually moving on to the next planet could be boring for some people, but I personally have found it relatively engaging, especially for the $15 price point. And here we are deep into the Earth. As you get far into mining inside a planet, you start getting to the molten core where you can't go any lower into a planet, just kind of avoid, and there we have me turning into like a Metroid ball. Now, there are definitely some shortcomings with this game, whether it be Terraria or, in this case, Starbound, where the NPC interactions, much like No Man's Sky, are kind of repetitive and boring. Often you're sent off to go find certain things, to plant certain things, kill certain enemies or whatever, and the quests and the interactions are rather repetitive and boring, especially the ones where instead of maybe taking out a group of bandits and rescuing somebody, there's like one person in particular you have to take out. Those people seem really, really hard for some reason. Like, I'm going through, I do several missions for people, and they say, hey, go take out this knight or something. I go do it, and they kill me in one hit. There's a lot of dying, and this game definitely also has survival elements. There are multiple ways you can play the game. You can play, kind of more hardcore stuff, or you can play in kind of the medium settings where you have to eat and think about food and things like that. And when you die, you drop all of your items. That can be really frustrating because spots can be really hard to get to in this game, especially if you're very deep in the core of a planet. Even remembering where you were and getting back there can be very, very difficult. So this game can certainly be frustrating. If you notice, I don't have a hunger meter in my game. I'm actually playing on the easy setting where I don't have to eat and I don't lose all my items on death. I do lose 10% of the pixels I have, which is the money in the game. And some people would say, oh, why am I being a wimp and playing that way? Well, I'm an old man without that much time on my hands. So this is the way I choose to play in person. I like it. I kind of wish you could choose, in any game in general, I wish you could choose all the difficulty settings individually. Maybe play where I do eat, but I don't drop my items, be able to choose all of those settings one at a time, but that's not the way this game works. So here we're getting to see a little example of the combat and whatnot. There are bosses in the game, there are kind of big missions, and an overarching story. The overarching story is pretty simple. There's, almost Lovecraftian type monsters that potentially threatening the universe, and we have to stop them. And I have not completed the game. I do have to point that out. I've played a lot of hours of the game though, and there is, I've progressed relatively far, but still have a ways to go because this is a game you can definitely sink a lot of time into. And the story, while not like super deep or anything like that, is definitely good enough in my opinion. And it is nice. A lot of two-handed weapons have special abilities, so I use like a blink strike there a second ago to kind of flash to a different space and do damage to enemies. And there's a lot of variety in the weapons, like I said, and it's a game that if you're looking for exploration, it's a very different game. It's not in first person, but there's a lot of building. So here we have a colony I built. You can build buildings, put a light source and a door on it, and then have people move in and have you pay rent. This is a pretty low-level place that I built. It's the first colony that I tried to build. And then I think we cut to a scene here in just a second where we see where I've built it up a little bit more. But basically, and here's a farm that I have. You can do farming. You can build colonies where you get different people. You can, depending on what stuff you put in rooms, you can get certain people like guards or even cultists or different things. Depending on what sort of things you put in the rooms, is going to be who you're going to attract. So a lot of the things that are missing in No Man's Sky, like being able to actually build with the resources you've gathered and things like that, are available in this game. And if you want to play, kind of hardcore survival, you can. But if you want to take it a little bit easier, not drop all your items, not have to worry about food like I'm doing, you can do that as well. So overall, Starbound is a game that I feel like offers a good amount of variety, somewhat Minecraft style building, somewhat No Man's Sky type exploration with all the different planets that you can go to. That probably do get repetitive eventually, but you do run into some different things. So here's kind of an underwater city that I ran into, but a good amount of variety and multiplayer available, and I found interesting things to do, but could get a little boring for some people, but for $15 instead of the $60 of No Man's Sky. So if you're looking for something that has definitely time you can spend playing it and you don't necessarily mind that grind, then Starbound is a game that I can kind of recommend. But if that grind isn't really for you, then I would say stay away. So there you go, there's Starbound, available on Steam and other places for $15. Thanks a lot for watching, and we'll talk to you again soon. Oh, and last but not least, you have a ship that you can expand and recruit crew for, like soldiers or engineers to make your ship more efficient, or costume designers or something that can make all your crew look like you, so we all have these awesome sort of wings and stuff like that. And you have a crew and cool things you can recruit as well as expand your ship, which is pretty neat. So thanks a lot for watching. We'll talk to you again soon.